Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man of the year 2099.
That's me, ready to save the universe and looking good while doing it.
Welcome to Accelerated Visions with your host, Gil Mancha. This is my chronological discussion of the Spider-Man of the future, Spider-Man 2099. Disclaimer, I will be actively getting and collecting volumes and other collections as we go, and I will only cover issues that I can get physically. I'm going to try to stray away from digital because I love physical media, but the Marvel Unlimited app would be a great way to keep up with the podcast. We'll of course start in the 90s with his original self-titled comic. There's a few others, some miniseries, and even video games we can discuss. And trust me, I'd love to discuss those games down the line. Be sure to hit the follow button on Spotify or preferred platform to get episodes as soon as they drop. While you're there, please leave a review so the show can be recommended to other comic book fans. In today's episode, we're covering Spider-Man 2099 Issue 9, Home Again, Home Again. Links will be in the podcast notes. According to Marvel.com, Issue 9 was published on July 1st, 1993. Let's take a look back at what else was happening that day in history.
Hey, can I call a timeout?
The top single in the US is still That's the Way Love Goes by Janet Jackson, and in the UK it's changed to Dreams by Gabrielle. The top of the box office is Jurassic Park. Grunge fashion is mainstream, popularizing band tees, ripped jeans, mom jeans, and Doc Martens. Looking towards video games, you're likely to be playing Duck Hunt and Tiny Toon Adventures 2, Trouble in Wacky Land on NES, Super Star Wars on SNES, and Desert Strike on Sega Genesis. If you're watching TV on the couch as a kid or teen, you're watching Postman Pat, Thomas the Tank Engine, Roseanne, and In Living Color. Children are playing with toys like the Pogo or Lolo Ball, the Ghostbusters Proton Pack, the Game Boy, and Super Soaker Water Gun. That's the Way Love Goes is continued from the last episode, so for more information on that, check out our last episode. Dreams by Gabrielle Soul on June 7th, 1993. Lyrics and singing was by Gabrielle, and the rest was by producer Tim Laws. Backing track using a Korg M1 synthesizer for most of the parts, piano, bass, string line, with an Akai S900 firing off drum loops and hits. The first version was a hit at nightclubs, being played by underground DJs. Due to containing a sample of the song Fast Car by Tracy Chapman, the sample was removed due to copyright. After selling a few thousand copies, she signed to Go Beat and did a newer version without the sample. This was the version that went straight to number 2 on the UK singles chart. In a 97 interview, Gabrielle discussed making the song. It wasn't until I took it home that I realized it was Fast Car by Tracy Chapman and thought, oh god, I love Fast Car, but I don't think I could write anything original for it. And it wasn't until I got to the studio on the day and I was on the train thinking, oh my god, I haven't written anything. So I opened up my notebook where I keep my songs, and Dreams was there. It was one of the songs I had written some time back. Billboard described the song as a gloriously romantic, uplifting pop dance shuffler, with a widely infectious chorus delivered with a sly, Deline grace, and that it has a interplay of contrasting elements like acoustic strumming, hip-hop styled beats, and disco that works surprisingly well. Freaky Trigger said her voice was soaked in personality. The song hit number 1 in the UK on June 20th, 1993. And stayed there for 3 weeks. It's widely seen as Gabrielle's signature song. It won't be making its way to my personal rotation, but it's a good song that will get you into the 90s mood to read the next issue of Spider-Man 2099. Jurassic Park is a 1993 science fiction action film directed by Steven Spielberg, produced by Kathleen Kennedy and Gerald R. Mullen, starring Sam Neill, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Richard Attenborough. IMDb summarizes it as a pragmatic paleontologist touring an almost complete theme park on an island in Central America that is tasked with protecting a couple of kids after a power failure causes the park's cloned dinosaurs to run loose. I absolutely have seen it, and there's some really fun horror elements in there as people are hunted down by dinos and they just pop out of nowhere. My favorite way to watch the movies in 3D so they pop a little more. Fun fact, they were going to use all animatronics for the film. Due to budget, they ended up mixing CG. The T-Rex was animatronic, but because it was a raining scene, it would get very wet. The animatronic was calculated to move according to its weight, but the water added weight to it, resulting in shaking, so between shoots they'd have to air and pat dry it to resolve this. It would go on to be a franchise with multiple movies, comics, books, video games, as well as attractions at Universal Studio theme parks. If you want to stream it, it's available on subscriptions like Peacock, Hulu, and Fubo TV. If you want to rent or buy it, you can get it on YouTube, Apple TV, Amazon Prime Video, Google Play Movies and TV, and Fandango at Home, previously called Voodoo. Duck Hunt is a light gun shooter game released on the Famicom in April of 1984 in Japan and Nintendo Versus System in North America. The game made use of a special light gun controller called the NES Zapper, that the player would have 3 attempts per round to shoot ducks and clay pigeons. It was later released for the NES in October 1985 in the deluxe set bundle with pack-in games together with Gyromite. It was later a part of the action set where it was bundled with Super Mario Bros. On one cart. The final double is the Power Set, wherein it was a multi-cart with World Class Track Meet, Super Mario Bros., and Duck Hunt. It was released on the Wii via the Virtual Console in 2014. Tiny Toons Adventures 2 Trouble in Wacky Land is a game based on the Tiny Toons Adventures franchise on the NES in 1992 in Japan and a year later in North America, and a year after that in the EU. The story involves Montana Max inviting everyone to a new amusement park in Acme Acres under the alias of a secret admirer. We've covered Super Star Wars in prior episodes, and since you're following along, then you already know about that game. Desert Strike is a shoot-'em-up game released by EA on the Sega Genesis in March of 1992. It was later released on SNES and even upgraded for the Amiga computer systems. It was also on MS-DOS, Sega Master System, Atari Lynx, Sega Game Gear, and Game Boy with Super Game Boy improvements. The game was inspired by the Gulf War and depicts a conflict between an insane Middle Eastern dictator, General Kilbaba, and the United States. The player controls an Apache helicopter and attempts to destroy enemy weapons and installations, rescue hostages, and capture enemy personnel while managing supplies of fuel and ammunition. It was later ported in 2002 to the Game Boy Advance, and the last time it was released was in 2006 for the PlayStation Portable as part of the EA Replay compilation game. Postman Pat is a 1981 British stop-motion animated children's television series first produced by Woodland Animations. The series follows the adventures of Pat Clifton, a postman who works for Royal Mail Postal Service in the fictional village of Greendale, inspired by the real valley of Longsdale near Kendal. There's an official YouTube channel with links to iTunes to purchase Season 1 and the first part of Season 2 in Great Britain. Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends is a British children's television series that aired for 24 series and 584 episodes from 9 October 1984 to 20 January 2021. Based on the Railway series books by Reverend Wilbert Awdry and his son Christopher, the series was developed for television by Britt Alcroft. The series follows the adventures of Thomas, an anthropomorphized blue steam locomotive in the fictional Northwestern Railway on the island of Sodor with his friends Edward, Henry, Gordon, James, Percy, Toby, and others who are engines of the Fat Controller. It's available on Netflix, Prime Video, Sling TV, and YouTube TV, video premium subscriptions, and available to buy on Fandango at Home. Roseanne is a 1988 sitcom that lasted for 10 seasons, explored life, death, and everything in between through the relatable, hilarious, and brutally honest lens of the working-class Connor household, which is located in a drab fictional exurb of Langford, Illinois. With the imitable Roseanne Barr at the epicenter as the family's matriarch, the series tackles current issues with fresh stories and even more laughs. Roseanne is joined by her husband Dan and their children, DJ, Darlene, and Becky. Roseanne's warm but neurotic sister Jackie rounds out the core of the family. It's available to watch on Peacock. There's a children's animated spin-off called Little Rosie that ran for 13 episodes. There's no official way to find it, but try a Google search and I'm sure you'll find it. There's also a live-action spin-off set in a more current day of 2018 and lasted 6 seasons. The Connors is available on Netflix, Hulu, Pluto TV, Sling TV, The CW, Fubo TV, Disney+, YouTube TV, and available to buy on Fandango at Home and Prime Video. In Living Color is a 1990s sketch comedy show that ran for 5 seasons. This series provides a platform for many members of the comedic Wayans family. Popular reoccurring sketches include Homie D. Clown, The Homeboy Shopping Network, Men on Film, and Great Moments in Black History. I only saw that you can watch it on YouTube TV, but I believe you can find episodes on YouTube uploaded by various users. We've covered all the popular toys, so you've already been primed on that because you're keeping up with the podcast. If you're familiar with any of these popular things in history, let me know. On the Spotify app, you now have a comment section where you can share with the community what you think of this issue. While you're there, I also have a poll. What other Marvel hero would you like to see covered like we do Spider-Man 2099? The choices are The Incredible Hulk, Howard the Duck, Venom, and Iron Man. You can pick as many as you'd like, and I'd love to see what people think. You can do it there, social media, or even the YouTube VOD for this episode. That's a taste of what the world was like when Spider-Man 2099 Issue 9 was published.
Let's start at the beginning, one last time.
I'm reading this thanks to the new Spider-Man 2099 Omnibus Volume 1. The comic was written by Peter David, penciled by Kelly Jones, inker Mark McKenna, colorist Steve Buscero, letterer Rick Parker, and editors Joey Cavalieri and Sarah Massif. The foreground shows S-Man's back to the reader while he's facing 4 impersonators, one of which is overweight and one's short with a ponytail sticking out. Behind those guys is a black background showing the impersonators have spotlights on them, revealing that the black background is a brick wall. There's words added to the title that make it say everyone wants to be Spider-Man 2099. Again, the name of the issue is Home Again, Home Again. Let's check out the About This Issue section on the Marvel Unlimited app for this issue. Miguel may have a strained relationship with his mother Conchata and a tenuous relationship with his brother Gabe, but family is family. When a Spider-Man falls into toxic trouble with Alchemax, the O'Hara family comes together to solve the missing pieces and save Miguel's life. This one's interesting because it seems like Miguel's in trouble, and despite their differences, his family helps him out. Now, Gabe seems to be on the cusp of finding out his secret identity, and he could easily relay that info to their mom. At a quick glance, this has nothing to do with the front cover. If we theorycraft though, maybe Alchemax thinks that Miguel is S-Man and goes after him. His family, knowing this and wanting to protect him, put on the same Mexican costume and pretend to be him. Of course, there's some different body shapes, but also telling Alchemax that, okay, maybe there's multiple S people. Honestly, it sounds like the ending to one of the Peter Parker Spider-Man movies, kind of like Spider-Man 2, where the people at the train try to defend Spider-Man from Doc Ock, or sort of like in Amazing Spider-Man when the construction workers line his way the cranes and the cops pause traffic so he can quickly get to the lizard. After the break, we'll summarize the issue.
I don't understand. Why aren't Anti-Venom's powers draining his...
Because mine are radiation-based, if you have to know.
Didn't know, don't care.
What it do, guys? Mandrame here, and if you like board games, especially deck building games, you should check out @Team_Thunder on YouTube. There we have unboxings and games of Legendary Marvel deck building game, the DC deck building game, the Transformers deck building game, and many more. That's also where you can find VODs for this and Gamma Radio, an Incredible Hulk podcast where you can directly leave a comment and we can discuss the issues.
That was a good warm-up. So when do I get a real challenge?
We start the issue at Wellville Home, a building surrounded by forest and many people walking around. An older woman is playing with some Medusa-looking puzzle. From off-screen she hears, "Conchata, it's nice to see you out and enjoying fresh air." Then we see it's a portly doctor. "That looks like a very intriguing puzzle. Would you care to explain it to me?" No answer. Close up on his face. "So why don't we pick up where we left off last week, Conchata? I was asking you about your sons and..." He gets cut off by Conchata, who begins to scream, "Ah!" with puzzle pieces going everywhere. The doctor calls for medics. On the next page, we get a full page of S-Men leaping through the town. "I made it. I'm backing uptown again. I'm home?" Turns out he's leaping in front of traffic. "Hey, watch out, you nut." Uh-oh. He's able to leap from the road to the pipes above. Whoa. Well, that would have just been my luck. After surviving being knocked all the way into downtown, close up we see disgust on his masked face. Coming out on top with that Vulture maniac. We see a flashback of him punching Vulture in the face. That would have been a pretty stupid way to end up. Decorating the front of a Magley car. I can't think of anything more embarrassing than... Freeze! He gets cut off. We see an officer with a 5 o'clock shadow, cigarette in his mouth, and 2 guns, one pointed at his direction. Except for maybe getting flat-footed by a public eye flyboy. Calls out to him, "Don't you so much as twitch, funny S-Man. Drop down with your hands over your head." Dropping down, he complies. Smart move, boy. Smarter than I gave you credit for. He grabs a mic. Hello, base. This is Puxilly. Believe it or not, I've got... He gets a mouthful of web, stopping him from talking but not shooting his gun. S-Man dodges and thinks close, but not quite. In response, he punches Puxilly in the mouth, causing at least one tooth to get dislodged from his skull. Ugh. As S-Man is holding him by the jacket, he can hear the mic on the patrol bike. Puxilly, say again? We did not copy the last of that. You got what? Thinking on his feet, S-Man goes to the bike, pulls up his mask to reveal his face, and talks to the mic. A major case of intestinal cramps. I think I'm getting sick. I'm calling it a day. The response is unexpected. If you have to, but this is your 7th sick call this year, Puxilly. Don't expect a full day's pay. S-Man picks up an unconscious Puxilly. Well, now this is luck. A hypochondriac flyboy. And more than that, he looks to be about my size. I might just have a shot at getting home without any more hassles. Cut to downtown, we see the outside of some tall buildings. From inside one, O'Hara, what the shock do you think you're doing? Were you thinking? Inside we see Gabe, Casey, and a third person. Casey goes on, a major fight with my people and the Freakers, and you pick that moment to cut and run, dragging me with you? He responds, I was worried about you, okay, Casey? She responds, no, it's not okay. I can take care of myself. I really wonder about you, O'Hara. Sometimes you show that you've got real potential. We see Casey in a pondering position, hands laced together but pointer fingers extended resting on each other. She has a flashback. Other times, I don't know. Maybe you take more after your snot brother Miguel than I thought you did. You should have seen him when I was escaping Alchem X. He was everything you said he was. Arrogant, condescending, smug, cared only about himself. We see a close-up on Gabe's face. Well, you know, maybe he's not as bad as that. Now close-up on Casey's face. What, now you're defending him? What is it with you today, O'Hara? For the first time in the scene, the third guy speaks up, with the panel putting an emphasis on his wrinkled temples and weary eyes. You know who I was impressed by? That spider guy. I caught a bit of it when he was slugging it out with the Freakers, and then when he was taking on the Vulture before they got out of sight. Now there's a guy with juice. From outside, we see Casey's silhouette now standing with her hands on her hips. Yeah, you're not kidding, Raph. It's taking a while for it to sink in on me that he got into all this because he risked his life for me. Now close up on her face, once again inside the room. Me, a total stranger, he's a genuine class act. Cut to his side shot as he flies through the city. But at least it'll get me where I'm going, namely home. Close up on him while he's steering, and who in the world's gonna mess with a public eye flyboy? Suddenly, several public eye officers close in on him with a much newer model flybikes. Huh? Where'd all these other flyboys come from? From behind he hears, finally, we're gonna nail Spider-Man. Close in on the flyboy's face, eyes focusing on something in front while S-Man's in the distance, panicking. They figured it out somehow. Only hope. He sends his bike straight downward. Is to drop fast. Lose myself in the... shock. They're catching up. I'm dead. Shock in his face. He sees something. What? Is it possible that... It couldn't be. He presses a button on the old bike and the radio plays. Repeat. Spider-Man has been sighted in Lincoln Mall. Walkabout. Use minimal force, but proceed and apprehend with caution. He has a AAA-1 danger rating. Apprehend Spider-Man? What's going on here? Cut to a yellow maglev car. So you want to tell me what's going on with these people you represent, Miss Daskalakis? They get to a stop. Oh, In a bit, the car starts going again, a big puff of exhaust behind it. So tell me, ex-Sergeant Estevez, have you ever been to Indy Town? He responds. Hardly. I spent my whole life in Nueva York. Her. Are you locals still pushing that Nueva York stuff? It's always been New York. And always will be. Ultimately, it doesn't matter. If and when you go back there, it'll be on your terms, no one else's. You can call it New York, Nueva York, Ricoville, if you've the mind to. They pass by a sign that says, "You're now entering Nightshade independently owned and operated," though owned and the last few letters of operated have graffiti on them. So far, Alchemex has left us alone. We haven't hit anything they really wanted. But recently, we've made some major breakthroughs in cross-dimensional quantum theories. It could even mean cracking the light barrier, recapturing some of the tech that was lost during the catastrophe at the end of the Heroic Age. When Alchemex catches wind of it, you can bet they'll try a hostile takeover. We have to be ready to defend ourselves, and we're looking for a few good men. Close up on his face. Count me in, Miss Daskalakis. After what they did to me, I don't owe them anything. She smiles and looks upward. I'm glad you said that, and please, Rico, call me Angela. They drive into what looks like a chrome castle. Good, I was breaking my tongue on your last name, she replies. Final chance to back out, Rico. Are you ready for the first day of the rest of your life? Angela, I wouldn't miss it for the world. And back in New York, we're back to the Flyboys going to the mall. There he goes. Of course, S-Man went to check out things as well. He cuts in front of one of the S-Boys, cutting off his line of sight to shoot. Puglisi, either shoot or get out of the way. On the ground looks to be Spider-Man 2099 running away. One of the Flyboys has no such obstacles. I'm on him. He shoots but misses. Meanwhile, S-Man's rightfully thinking, this is nuts. What is this? The shots miss Spider-Man, who's forced to jump off the balcony as a blast hits. Zatch. Unfortunately, or fortunately for him, the webbing on his costume gets hooked on part of the structure. He's hung up on that webbed airfoil of his. Now the airfoil tears and he falls. From behind, get him! And presumably he says, wait, look! On the next page, we see at least 7 Spider-Man-looking people, one rather large and one female among them. The place is crawling with Spider-Men. Another Flyboy asks, what the shock is going on? That one might actually be Miguel. Meanwhile, S-Man nosedives to catch the falling Faker. He thinks, I have a sick feeling I know. But first things first, even from here, I can tell what he had on his back isn't light bite cloth. If I don't catch up with him, he's going to be Spider Splat. There's one Spider-Man that looks to be hanging onto a wall. If Flyboy approaches, get down here, boy, now. Then he punches him. I said now. With the Spider-Man on the ground, he said, I've seen Spider-Man in action, and compared to you, you got the speed of curdled milk. Who are you? He removes his mask. To reveal some guy with a goatee and a ponytail. I spread the word of Spider-Man. He will bring punishment from on high. Oh yeah? The Flyboy takes off Spider-Man's glove, revealing the trick to his wall crawling. Not as bad a punishment as we're gonna bring, Mr. Micro-Suction Fingertips. Back to the real deal, Miguel's able to web the Faker's arm before he hits, seeming to cause no injury. He thinks, I did it, caught him with a web strand. Fortunately, it's resilient enough that it didn't stop him too abruptly. Otherwise, I'd have torn his arm out of its socket. Here's where we get my quote of the issue.
Son of a...
Computer, this laboratory has been compromised. Initiate self-destruct sequence. 10 seconds.
10 seconds? That's barely enough time to come up with a clever explosion-related quip.
Ooh, that must really burn you up. So long, Spider-Man. It's been a blast.
Oh, she's good.
The Faker misinterprets the moment. I created the web line. He gets to his knees, looking at his wrists. I am transformed. I am become one with Spider-Man. It's a miracle. The fact that he thinks he created the web that has no connection or place to have come out of him is hilarious. I can forgive him for not noticing that it was coming out of a Flyboy, especially to the perils of the situation, but thinking he himself having transformed into Spider-Man is absolutely wild. Miguel swoops around. The only miracle here is that you're not dead. He gets out and grabs him by the collar of the costume. What do you think you were doing? You could have been shot and killed. He responds, I am a keeper of the faith. I am a true believer. Once I worshipped Thor, but now I, and others of my brethren understand, we worship Spider-Man, the true word of Thor and Earth. Face front. Miguel rips off his mask, revealing a young blonde, maybe teen or young adult. Look, this isn't a game, okay? He tears it off. Go home, burn this costume, and never pretend you're Spider-Man again. The blonde man looks at him, smiling. You do not understand. The Spiderite movement is the way of the future. Miguel lost his patience, pointing at him. Look, I'm telling you that. The talent comes out of the finger pointing at the young man. Uh-oh. He looks away from the man as he looks at his hand. Swell, he got me so upset I forgot to concentrate on keeping my talents down. Maybe you won't figure it out. He bows down to him. Oh, great and powerful Spider-Man, master of disguise, who moves in mysterious ways, grant me the wisdom to understand your teachings and emulate your greatness. Miguel gets back on the bike. Look, kid, trust me, you don't want to be me. So go home and be you, okay? Whatever you say, Great One. He collapses on the ground with a euphoric look in his eyes. He called me kid. He likes me. Oh. From outside the apartment, he's greeted. Hello, Miguel. Inside, Lila continues. There are 4 messages and a Metro Express package for you. Even with the helmet on, you know me in a second. Incredible. She responds. Instantaneous recognition is one of my more routine functions, Miguel. With his helmet off, zoomed in on his face, he asks, out of curiosity, Lila, is there any circumstance under which you wouldn't ID me? From off-screen, she begins to answer. Of course, if all your life functions had stopped and your hands and feet were severed from your body, close up on her face, and your eyes were gouged out, and your teeth were broken. He looks down. Swell, draw me a bath, would you? She looks at him smiling and with a finger pointed upward. Or if you were incinerated, that would do it. Okay, thanks. She continues. You could have me upgraded for DNA scans. She turns away from him. That way, no matter how badly you were mangled or mutilated, I could... He loses it. I get the picture, all right? With a somewhat sinister look, she says, you don't have to shout at me, Miguel. And then she screams, you don't have to act like I have no feelings. Then Miguel walks back into the room with a bathrobe. Lila, you're a holographic computer agent. You don't have feelings. She crosses her arms. True, but I'm programmed to simulate them. Would you like me to fake a jealous tantrum? She makes fists and grimaces. I can't believe it. You've been seeing another system, some bubblehead, with a bigger memory. Miguel, I thought we had something special. He just walks through the AI projection. Beautiful. Give yourself a Best Actress award. Is my bath ready? She responds. Yes, Miguel. Suddenly she's in a black evening dress and holding a trophy. I'd like to thank the Academy. Miguel goes to the bathroom and looks at himself in the mirror holding some cream, he thinks. Once the restorative cream soaks in, it should remove the bruises. And then I'm going to soak for a year. In the other room, Lila is still going over her acceptance speech. And my programmers, without whom I'd be nothing. While at Gabe's apartment, he throws his jacket off and paces, Spider-Man this, Spider-Man that, Spider-Man some other shocking thing. Close up on his face. Oh, I'm not trying to make you jealous, O'Hara. He mimics her with heart coming off of him. But doesn't he have just the cutest little... He kicks the table. Nyah! Then he hurts his foot. Nyah! Then he notices he has missed messages and hops to it. Hit figures. Hit figures. It figures. He puts it to his ear. This is Gabriel O'Hara, customer 033475722-A. Calling for messages. Close up on his face. Huh? I mean, repeat, please. Oh boy, this just makes my day complete. Back at Miguel's bath with just his head and hand above the water. He's already soaking when a woman in a dress enters as well. At last. He replies, huh? Holding her dress up with her, looks down at him. I've got you where I want you. She sits on the rim of the bathtub. Miguel. She starts talking. Look, Dana, I know I've been really hard to track down lately, but there's a reason. Focus shifts from behind his head to beside her, now looking at him. She responds, oh really? What's the reason? What is it? Now we get an unflattering angle looking up at her. She responds, that's right. What is it? Back to him. The reason is that I was developing a method of... She responds, oh what? Looking straight ahead but not at her, of shaking the effects of rapture. So I wasn't keeping you up with my whereabouts because I'd been seeing some people working some shady places. She interjects, Miguel, you weren't doing anything dangerous, were you? Now he looks up at her. Compared to the dangers of rapture addiction, no. And I did it, Dana. I beat it for good. You did? Miguel, that's wonderful. There's a side effect or two. My teeth are sensitive. So if you want to kiss or something, close up on her face, don't worry, I'll be gentle. The two kiss and then she slips into the bathtub. Whoop! The two keep kissing, but off screen they hear, It's his brother. Miguel calls out, Gabriel. For crying out loud, does anyone in this shocking city knock? Gabe's face is solemn, partially obscured by darkness. I really hate to interrupt. Hi, Dana. We gotta go, Miggy. It's Mom. Show the two lovers' shocked faces and see Gabe's text from off screen. She's collapsed in the home and she's calling for us. That's where the issue ends. It doesn't have a next section. After the break, we'll go over some thoughts and feelings about the issue.
Our reality is coming apart at the seams. And now I see why.
The two gateways created a link between our times.
Together, across the expanse of time, we must defeat our enemies and defy death itself.
No, not this time!
Going on from the first 8 issues to reading this one, the art is noticeably different, and honestly, it's a bit jarring. I get it, you don't want the new artist to just copy the previous, but man, at first I wasn't even sure who I was looking at until it was explicitly stated. The people look more real and ugly, whereas previous issues, everyone just was good looking. Going into the story and my prediction about Miguel's family, knowing his secret and we're helping him to throw off the public eye off of his scent, dead wrong. Turns out he got his own cult following. It was definitely a smart idea to go incognito, taking Puxili's outfit. Hopefully there's no trackers in it, otherwise the public eye will go straight to Miguel's apartment. If it doesn't, then having a uniform might be a good way to sneak away from other situations. During Gabe and Casey's interaction early in the issue, it's funny that Miguel starts feeling insecure about Casey talking about her attraction to Spider-Man, as she assures him it's just a fantasy and that she'd probably be disappointed in how he looked under the mask. There seems to be a rift growing between them. You have the dichotomy of her crushing on Spider-Man, but being disgusted by Miguel. What'll happen when she finds out? My guess is that she'll be smart enough to know that Spider-Man is like the real personality and honestly probably leave Gabe. More dramatically, he'll find out and leave her, seeing the writing on the walls. Onto the Estevez situation. I think he's being taken to Nightshade to be experimented on and he'll become a bad guy for Spider-Man. Angela absolutely cannot be trusted and maybe he'll end up hunting her as well. It's nice to see some wholesome interactions with Lila, his AI waifu. She goes above and beyond to explain the horrible things that would have to happen to Miguel in order for her to not be able to register who he is. Comes off a little creepy, but it seems to be a thing where she's actively pulling up situations where identification would be uncertain, but coming from a quote-unquote person, it does sound really off-putting. Gabe doesn't seem too worried about his mom, more like another bad thing happening in my day sort of thing. Obviously there's some sort of history there, so it's not easy to really say what's going on. Gabe just entering Miguel's bathroom was wild, and staying there while Miguel and Dana, his ex, were in the bath together, just weird. I mean, they weren't doing anything X-rated and she still had her clothes on, but he still had a weird familiarity that comes off as cold and unfeeling. This could have been from his past history with Dana or what's currently going on with their mother. Maybe we'll find out in the next issue. What do you think? Did you read the comic? Did I get something wrong? If I do and you guys let me know, I'll include a correction section in the next episode and I'll credit the user. Let's continue the discussion on social media, YouTube VOD, and now the Spotify comment section. You can find me at AcceleratedPod on Twitter and at Team_Thunder on YouTube. If you're looking for another podcast to listen to and you want to learn more about Aquaman, King of the Seven Seas, we're currently in the Silver Age before Aquaman Volume 1 there. Check out Water Damage and Aquaman podcast on Spotify and anywhere you can find podcasts. Be sure to follow that and this podcast to get episodes as soon as they drop. Mandrame, out.
I've had it with this jabbering freak.